We've got Paul Rouse in the studio. Great day for Offaly. Great couple of days for Offaly.
Well, first of all, a great day for Shane Lowry. It is an individual sport, and he just did immensely well, and people are so happy for him. It's you know, when somebody sometimes does something in an individual sport, there can be a certain reticence about them, or you know, it's not quite as overwhelmingly supported, but he just genuinely loved. And yes, a great day for Offaly as well, because he is a very proud Offaly person. He's obviously very well associated with the GAA, not just through his father Brendan, but also through himself and his own support for Offaly teams, and the enormous help he gave to fundraising for Offaly GAA in building a new training centre and facilities down there at Faithful Fields. And he's a fella who is, I don't know well at all. I've only met him a couple of times, but he's as genuine and nice a fella as you could possibly meet. And if you look at that video, I recognise the people who are around that table. There's loads of lads there from Clara GAA. And whatever, I'd be Tullamore GAA, and there'd be a fairly strong rivalry there. But they're all his friends that were there. So this is not a man walking into a room where it's full of celebrities or people who they're all his friends.
How good a footballer was his father?
Oh, his father was a great footballer. Brendan Lowry was an outstanding footballer. In that team of 1982 that won the All-Ireland, Matt Connor was the untouchable genius on that team. There's no argument with that. Matt Connor was a great who transcends the generations, an unbelievably brilliant footballer. As a forward, Brendan Lowry was just exceptional, and I just thought of it. This just come into my head. But when I was in first year in school, we had to do projects on someone. I did my project on Brendan Lowry.
We can see him up on screen there in the front row. Second one from the left there is Brendan Lowry, isn't it?
Yes, it is. And if you look to the far side, diagonally across from him, the man with the moustache is Brendan's older brother Sean, who played on the Offaly teams that won in 71 and 72, and beside Brendan's second from the left, Brendan's second from the right, and beside him is his brother Mick. So there were three Lowrys on that team, and I never played against Sean Lowry, but in club football I played a lot against both Brendan and Mick. I had the great misfortune to have been marked by Mick on several occasions. That was a fairly chastening experience, and OTBAM were really strong at the time. They won 5 or 6 county championships, and he has at least 6 county medals and possibly even 7, and he was the star forward on the OTBAM team, and his capacity to kick points left and right from every angle was outstanding. And I think it should also be noted, he stayed playing with Offaly well into his 30s when Offaly had really diminished as a team. So he was still playing in the early 90s when Offaly were really struggling, and he turned up, you know, season after season, knowing that this was not simple. So, and that really the glory days were over.
And he was the Westmeath manager for a while.
He was, and he did a good job with Westmeath, and he's just very, very impressive footballing brain.
We did want to chat briefly before we get on to GAA about Esker Hills as well, and the role that's had within Offaly, and how obviously now Shane Lowry is without question the most famous disciple of the place.
Oh, Esker Hills. I actually was working in the local papers in Offaly when Esker Hills opened in the middle of the 90s, and there was a supplement to celebrate the opening of Esker Hills in the paper in the year that I did, and I was the sports reporter there, so I did the supplement with them. And I remember everybody saying at the time, "What are they doing?" They built this golf course in the Esker, out in Ballymere beside the hurling field. And you're thinking, how is this possibly going to work? There's already a golf club in Tullamore just 4 or 5 miles away. There are golf clubs dotted around the Midlands. And where are these people going to come from? And there was a general scepticism that this could possibly work. I know that Celtic Tiger was beginning to get going at that stage, but it hadn't really reached Offaly. And the sense was that who's going to play there is the question. Who's really going to, but they did the most beautiful job, and I was really lucky. I got to play around right at the start. It brought around by Lowrys, and I just put on an exhibition. Really, like I lost 11 balls in the first 14 holes. There was no angle I couldn't have hit it at, but it was just great fun. Like it's a really challenging course, and it's to their absolute credit that they have developed the course and developed it, and it has a genuine place. It doesn't have a huge membership, but it's brilliantly run. The greens are always superb. Like the play, it's just an excellent golf course.
Do you get back and play there often?
I think there's probably a ban on me playing there from after that thing, but no, I don't. No, I don't play golf anymore.
That was it. You lost 11 balls, and that was it.
Brought the game as far as I could.
I'd imagine they might have a few more visitors after the weekend.
Oh yeah, but it is. I think it's a celebrated course. It would have been a celebrated course anyway because it is a great course. But Shane Lowry has added a huge duster to it, and it seems a kind of a trite thing to say, but he is very loyal to the place. Like, why wouldn't he be on one level? But he is.
Yeah.
And he's very loyal to Clara GAA. He's president or joint president of Clara GAA Club, which is he the youngest president of a GAA club in the country? But he's incredibly loyal to his home golf club, to his family, to Clara, and to Offaly.
Right.
Paul, we want to talk about the GAA. That's why you're here. Fantastically, you've been able to get sidetracked by Shane Lowry this morning, but the GAA and their decision making, it's something that you've been writing about last week in the Irish Examiner. The headline there on screen: football's B Championship proposals warrant A+ planning and debate. And this piece really, Paul, I think it's fair to say, is about something that gets lost a little bit in this debate. It's not just about the conclusions that the GAA are reaching, it's how they arrive at those conclusions.
I think the decisions and the way the decisions are being made and the ad hoc nature of the planning that is going into these decisions, or appears to be going into these decisions. Now, maybe it's a communications issue. Maybe behind all of this, there is ream after ream of evidence and study and well set out plans. But if there are, it's not clear what they are. It is not clear what the strategy is, and it's not clear what the ambition is. And it is not clear how setting up a B Championship is going to help close the gap between the weaker teams and the stronger teams. And nobody has offered an explanation as to how, in and of itself, it can do that. And I don't understand that.
Is this a new thing? Because we talk about strategy. A couple of weeks ago, we were talking about the 2001 strategic report, and the infamous one at this point, because it recommends splitting Dublin into two. Like, that's a clear strategy. As controversial as that may seem, there is a clear process of thought there that this must be kind of a new thing. 10, 15 years ago, there was better strategy in the GAA, it seems. Or maybe I'm just being a little bit too kind to the previous regimes.
I think probably the high point of the GAA strategies were in the early 70s, when they recast the organisation as a community focused entity which would have clubhouses and it would be a focal point for communities rather than just a field with dressing rooms. So that was probably the high point, and everything that has happened in the GAA has flowed from that capitalisation on the GAA sporting presence to make it much more socially relevant within the everyday life of the community rather than just its sporting life. But if you look since then, it is not apparent where the GAA's planning is going. And I do take the point on strategic review of 2001. It raised a huge amount of fundamental questions that have not been answered. And even that very issue of splitting Dublin, things have got much more serious in that area, not because Dublin are winning. Dublin will stop winning soon. They will continue to be competitive, of course, but they won't just keep winning. So this is not about whether Dublin win 5 in a row or 6 in a row or 7 in a row. What this is about is the fact that the population of this country is going to grow by 1 million, according to all projections, over the next 20 years. And half of that 1 million are going to be based in the Greater Dublin area. And that really matters. So what is the plan for that? How does the GAA intend to deal with all of that? Is it planning for that? How does it cope with the fact that there is, all across Ireland, a drift away from rural Ireland and into country towns? Are there plans to put more clubs into country towns? Or is that just the way it's going to be? Laois GAA did a brilliant study of the future of the county 4 years ago. Excellent piece of work. But it suggested that there could be up to 10 club losses in Laois over the coming years because of rural depopulation, while at the same time Portlaoise is doubling in size. So there's the need for more clubs there. But where is the planning for that? So what you're looking at here is there any proper long-term sensible planning for the GAA, or is it just caught up in some sort of immediacy or reactive policy making?
Because that certainly seems the way it is when we look at the tiered championship. Now, personally, Paul, I'm actually okay with the possibility of a tiered championship. I actually kind of see the merits to it. But the current way it's been done, the method with which we've actually seen the two proposed tiers being brought forward by John Horan recently, it's been done completely the wrong way. It seems that the solution is to a problem that perhaps wasn't there. The problem is not that there needs to be a trophy for these lads to win at the end of the summer. This needs to be something that helps development and helps them kind of aim for something that will lead to perhaps the ultimate prize one day. And it's hard to know where exactly the thought process has gone in terms of these two proposals. Like I don't know. It's a really tricky one because, as I say, it is an important thing that we should be talking about when it comes to tier championships. But the way they've arrived at this decision, as you said, seems unusual.
Well, there are legitimate, sensible arguments in favour of having a tier championship. Legitimate arguments that are there to be done. And Kieran Daly, for one, makes really plausible, sensible point of view about why one is necessary. But the idea that in and of itself it is going to do anything to close the gap between the weakest teams and the strongest teams is a nonsense. And I'll ask another question in relation to that. Under the proposals of two tiers, in what way will the teams at the bottom of Division 4 be able to cope with even the teams at the top of Division 3? Let's take next year, for example, where Cork and Derry are going to be in Division 3. In what way are teams, we can pick whoever we want here, in the bottom half of Division 4, but let's pick, we'll say, for example, London or Waterford or Wexford were there this year. So how are those teams going to be able to cope with the teams even at the top of Division 3 by the very virtue of creating that championship? You must have a programme of a proper calendar of play, first of all. You must have structured resources going into each county. You must ensure that the development patterns within each county and the pathways for development of players are proper. And most of all, you have to provide games and proper coaching for kids from the beginning upwards. And you're much better off focusing on developing that than in this sort of lipstick on a pig approach of a two-tier championship.
Is it too harsh to suggest that we're near the end of John Horan's term as presidency and his legacy will be seen as the guy who brought in the second tier, and no matter how this ends up, it will be a legacy. It'll be like Pádraig Duffy's legacy being the Super 8s, and maybe Pádraig Duffy actually really did think the Super 8s was the best possible solution, but there is an element of legacy planning here, is there not?
I don't know. Is the honest thing to say. That would be for, I have seen that suggested, I've seen that. I don't know John Horan. I have no idea if that's the way he operates. I would be really surprised and disappointed if that is what it is. And I think a much more long-term issue is the calendar of play. And this again, where's the planning around this? The calendar of play is the single greatest issue facing the GAA, but that integration of club and county and where people play, it's the single greatest issue. And in terms of that, a committee was announced months and months ago, the end of last year, if I remember correctly. The committee has begun to meet now and reports in November. So it's taken a lot of time before we even move into that committee. And even now, the same Central Council meeting, which decided to formulate, to agree, all the hands went in the air to support a two-tier championship. The same Central Council meeting that did that, without setting out the rationale behind it, then announces that it's changing the calendar of play before its committee has even done its work and only really got going. It's still doing a questionnaire, or just finished a questionnaire from people around the place. It was taking submissions until last week from anyone who wished to. And it's working through material. We can argue about the composition of the committee and what it's going to do, but you have to actually let it do its work before you decide to preempt change and bring forward the Club All-Ireland finals.
What do you think was the thought process behind that?
I don't know. I can't understand it. I can't understand how a modern sporting organisation of its importance, of its scale, which means so much to so many people, should conduct itself. And you saw it earlier in the year again with the increase in ticket prices. and the suggestion that this was the first increase since 2011, which of course, subsequent that claim was blown out of the water completely. There's been a series of ticket price increases. And so this is there as well. And it's not clear where the planning is around that. And the misunderstanding of how much money people have at their disposal. It is too expensive now to go to GAA matches for a lot of people. And that also must be taken in. And that disconnect, it revealed to me another disconnect between people who are supposed to make policy in Croke Park, the paid officials of the association, and those people who run the show at club level.
Like, that disconnect is something that we've spoken about quite a bit, but it is, I think, actually the perfect time of the year to talk about this. We often talk about the club player when it comes to January, February, March, but really it's the middle of July we should be talking about this sort of thing, because John Green had the line in the Sunday Independent, great piece actually, talking about how his local pitch down home is in pristine condition because it's not being used, whereas it's ravaged in February and March. And Cahir O'Kane actually, just reading his piece there the other day, talking about Tyrone. Since April 26th, there have been just 3 rounds of Division 1 games. The last of them were played on June the 9th. Like, I mean, if you're a club player, again, like we're blue in the face from saying it, you're being screwed over by the current setup. When your inter-county team is in action, you're not getting meaningful games in the most important part of the year.
And again, it is always forgotten in this, the county players are also club players.
Yeah.
And county players routinely profess how much they love playing with their club and how much their club means to them. So while they are also being denied the opportunity to play for their club. So this whole thing, so club players aren't playing, they're sitting around idle, and it is getting going now because so many counties have been knocked out. That is absolutely the case all across Ireland. In very many counties who are not involved in the Super 8s, apart from those 8 counties who are there, club championships are getting moving. And it should be said to the credit of the GAA, moving stuff forward to August has created more of a window to finish championships. But again, it's that verb, finish them. Why don't we play them? Why is it just squeezed in and now it's the wacky races to try and finish the championships as soon as you possibly can? But like the O'Byrne Cup in Leinster started at the end of November last year, and Offaly were slated to play Kildare at the end of November. Offaly played their last senior inter-county match was against Leishan last weekend in June this year. That is a championship season which stretches, or that is an inter-county season which stretches across 8 months. Like that is just insane for the number of games that are played. I think they played 14 matches in that time. That is absolutely insane. There's an insane amount of training. And of course, the April window for those counties who are playing in the first 2 weeks of May is a nonsense.
Yeah.
It's
grand if you're playing at the end of June.
It's grand if you're playing in June, and then you can. What's happening is a couple of club games are being shoehorned into early April, and then, it's managed after that. But if you're out in the first couple of weeks in May, you're training with your county.
Oh, do you remember a time, like, because we all know now that the Sam Maguire, the All Ireland it's the be all and end all. Inter-county managers won't release their players because they don't want to risk injuries. Do you remember a time when inter-county managers were fine with allowing their players to play club football during a championship? When did it become the be all and end all?
I think it is. I think there's always been a tension there, and to imagine there was a time when there hasn't been a tension is not right. But what there was a much greater integration where there wasn't that same power vested in county managers where they could just decide. It is a process which has gathered pace over the last 4 decades. There's no doubt. But before that, people went and played for their clubs. It was considered good preparation to actually play a match, to be match fit going out, to go and play in games. But you can't. This divide, this kind of like extraordinary iron curtain down on preparation for an inter-county game which is being played in 5 weeks' time, and because of that you're not released to play for your club. It's a nonsense, and it does nobody any service.
Is the fixtures committee, well, I think we all know the answer to this, is the fixtures committee doomed by the nature of the GAA because of all the different parties that we have involved? Like, you talk about the disconnect between inter-county and club, and you talk about the roots of the GAA. Like, if I'm chairman of Leinster GAA, I'm thinking about my own patch. If I'm chairman of Dublin GAA, I'm thinking about my own patch. If I'm chairman of the GAA, I'm thinking about my own patch and what we can do in terms of competing with other sports on the very biggest level. That there are too many different parties here, and like Colm O'Rourke's piece immediately after this committee was announced, he had a good analogy in fairness when he says, as for the first meeting of this committee, it should either be a knock or a Lowrys, because a miracle will be needed for the radical change that cannot be agreed to by people who are being paid to protest sectoral interest. And that is a very valid point, and that is the diplomacy that we need to try and come up with to actually come up against this divide between the two parties, or the numerous parties I should say. How is that possible?
Well, I read that article by Colm O'Rourke, and I suppose I should refer to, first of all, to John Green and Carol Kane, both of whom have they've written brilliant columns for a long time now on these issues. And Colm O'Rourke has been leading the charge on this idea of fixtures and play and everything for a long time as well. Now, I absolutely understand where Colm O'Rourke comes from, but the committee should be given a chance to do its work, and it will be there in black and white when they're finished. They have to produce a report, they have to produce a series of proposals, and it will be abundantly clear when that is produced whether they have actually fulfilled their mandate on behalf of the entirety of the association, which we have to hope they do, and trust in the people who are doing that, or if they go a different way. And it will be really interesting to understand which way they go about it. And it will be clear by the report that comes out at the end. So what are your proposals? How do you intend to integrate club and county? How do you intend to give a proper calendar of play that fits with the membership of the association? And this current system is not doing a service to inter-county players as well. That's the whole thing. Inter-county players are dragged from pillar to post. They are training endlessly. The report last year from Ailish Kelly from the ESRI, everybody focuses on how much inter-county players are given. She asked a brilliant question in it. Where's the evidence that it's bringing improvement? For in a lot of instances. And that really matters. Is endless training, which is what is happening, really going to do it? And if you're going to look at structures, we already have a tiered competition. It's called the league. And the tiered competition should, if you really want to do this, you can run these competitions, milk them together, but there are too many competitions. There's the pre-season provincial competitions, the league, the provincial championships, and the All-Ireland championships. 4 distinct competitions. The provincials and the All-Irelands are linked together, of course. But the others are, why?
Yeah. I dare say if you were the one-person committee of this fixtures group, you would immediately get rid of the pre-season competitions. Is there anything else you would do? Do you have a particular format in mind that you think can save us here and that can get club players back into the mix in the summer?
I think the league and the championship should be run at the same time, and I think that they should be run one as a knockout and one as a league. And the league is actually a league without league semi-finals and finals. I know there's only league final now, but stop. Just play it as a league. And let it be a knockout championship, provincial championship, absolutely fine. People love the provincial championship. It's all very well to dismiss the provincial championship. And it may be boring in Leinster football because Dublin are still winning, but it is a legitimate aim for the rest of the counties of Leinster to try and improve and to compete at that level. So, for example, if you're Kildare or Meath, it should be a realistic goal to win a Leinster championship.
Do you have faith in the power brokers at the top of the GAA to be able to implement change as required?
I regret to say that the evidence so far is that the leadership to make the decisions that need to be made has not yet been made apparent. What there has been is a series of sticky plaster fixes and talk about fixes and the kind of illusory unicorn chasing of Super 8s and of two-tier championships as if these are a solution. Without structural change, without much better financial arrangements across counties.
Like there's been some very radical solutions proposed. I mean, the idea of striking has been proposed. Like I can't imagine that the reaction from the new Tier 2 counties will be very polite next summer when one or the other passes this autumn.
I don't take it as a given that I'm told everybody says that all the numbers are there, it'll definitely pass. But these things can be revealed in the detail, and you would like to think that anything that passes will have proper support. Any players that I have spoken to from Tier 2 counties, and I'm sure there are plenty who support these things, I don't doubt, but any ones that I have spoken to, the players that I know, I have yet to hear one argue passionately for this. And because it's clear, I think it's clear to everybody that it's a wing and a prayer stuff.
What was your reaction when you heard about the proposed move to strike action when it comes to the Leinster Championship? I mean, it's a very radical thing to say, but it was ultimately put out there at one point this summer.
I don't see the point of it. I don't see the point of a strike. I'm not. This is an amateur organisation in which people play games, and I'm not too sure who striking actually helps.
Yeah.
I
you think people will come to the realisation that the correct decisions can be made in a much easier manner?
Well, the one thing about every strike is it has to end. Because everything beyond that is chaos. So a strike has to end. So it would be better to work on the things that need to be worked on and preempt that. You'd like to think that things will move a little bit more smoothly than that.
Yeah, you'd like to hope so. Paul, great stuff. Thanks a million for popping into the studio this morning. All right, Alan Quinlan is joining us next in studio. He'll be looking at England's Rugby World Cup preparation.